Welcome to The Pitch, a coach's show on Ashland University's men's soccer team. I'm Kate Trackis, joined alongside Coach Nick Roberts. Coach, a great weekend for you guys. You were able to go pull off a tie on Sunday, and then on Thursday, a win. First and foremost, kind of your thoughts on how everything went.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably know, our non-conference games early in the season, they're tough schedules. Davis and Elkins beat us 4-0 here last year in the opening game, so obviously we wanted to try and get a better result this year. Went down there. It's a tough trip. It's it's a good 4.5 hour drive down there. We stayed overnight, and we won. Which was great. It was a very tough game. They gave us a hard time. I think the game could have gone either way, and we were under a lot of pressure in that game after getting a goal. I think in the first 2 or 3 minutes, and then they got back into it in the second half, and then really under the gun a lot, there the last 15-20 minutes, and then Sochi pulled up with a goal at 10 minutes to go, and we hung on and got the win, so that was good. And then yesterday at home at Millersville, it's always a tough game. It's a game that we've had on the schedule now for 2 or 3 years. I think we've tied a couple of times. They beat us once. We beat them once. We won down there last year 1-0. And then yesterday was, they really did give us a hard time in the first half. And they could have had the game out of sight, but we adjusted in the second half. We moved a few things around. We decided to go a little bit higher and press the centre backs where they were getting a lot of joy coming out the back. And Tommy Woodward got 2 goals. And we looked very, very comfortable in the second half, and then of course, late in the game, we just switched off for a minute and we conceded a late goal. But I think in the end, to be totally honest, I think that it was a fair result.
Yeah, and when you look at sophomore goalkeeper Alvaro, he had 2 great games. Talk me through a little bit how he's adjusted to the team and how he's really taken over as that starting keeper.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the goalkeeper situation before, but he's very steady. That's really what I can tell you, and nothing I would say is you're not going to say he's a flashy goalkeeper, but he's very steady. He does he's got the saves in him. He's good in the air. He talks well. He's certainly very, very good at coming off his line. Anything comes in behind, he times that really well. So he's a very, very steady goalkeeper. And as I said before, anytime you've got that, that instills a sense of confidence into the team.
And you talked a little about Tommy Woodward, but I mean his opportunity in that second half, both of his opportunities actually, came on that extra effort. Finishing down the field and putting pressure on the defensive line, ultimately resulting in those turnovers on the pass back to the keeper. Yeah. How does it speak to his ability to not only not give up on plays, but keep that extra pace moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was in the second half, in the first half we were playing one up front with Tom. That becomes hard when they got 4 defenders. You got to cover a lot of ground. And what was happening in the first half, they were getting out as a 4, and so what we decided to do was put 2 up top and really press with the front 4, and I think those help create those situations. But he's a true centre forward, and he understands, certainly with his background and where he's played before here, that that's how goals are made. So he's aware of that, and both finishes were more or less the same, but they were both exceptional. I mean, a lot of players, can't do that, get 2 opportunities like that, but both in the back of the net. So that's a sign of a really good forward.
And it's hard to compare 2 different teams. Obviously, you faced Davis Elkins on Thursday, Millersville on Sunday, but there was a major glaring difference in the 2 games. Only getting 4 shots in that game against Davis and Elkins and finding the back of the net twice. You were outshot 19-4 in that game, but still found a way to win. Shifting gears, you look at Millersville, you guys were peppering the keeper. How does that just show you the different identity that this team's trying to find this year?
I think it's still going to take a while. I think the biggest issue, I think the Davis and Elkins game, I think they're a good team, number one. I think they're really going to be, I think they'll be competing for the Mountain East down there, even with Charleston. And I think that, we played them pre-season too. So I think they're really going to be up there in that league. So when you go on the road like that, those are the type of games that you're going to get regardless, just because you're on the road. You're going to expect to be under pressure. And so I think just the nature of that game, being on the road against a good team, sort of creating that environment, that type of situation in the game. The good thing for us was, we hung around. We stayed in the game. We've defended very good in all the games we've played so far, and so we stayed in it. And they hit the bar, I think, in the second half. But it's just one of those games that when you're at home, you expect to be on top of the games. You expect to win games. When you're on the road, it's a little bit different. You got to try and grind some games like that and find wins, and that's ultimately what would make a successful season. But I say this to the guys all the time, hey, try and take care of business at home and let's see what we can get on the road. And that was one that we got on the road.
Exactly. And we've talked about a lot of those players who maybe found the back of the net, or the guy in goal who stands out. These guys who stand out to the average Joe, but some of the guys that were on the pitch, even on Sunday against Millersville at home, might not have showed up in the stat sheet much, but guys like Antonio Soto and Flynn Toon, they were just filling their roles well, and they were doing it exceptionally.
Yeah, all the guys across the back. Enoch too. I mean, he was unbelievable yesterday, and just great kid. He's going to do next 2 years. I'm really excited about his game. But all those guys at the back, Abdul, when you're a defender, you're a kind of an unsung hero, really.
Yeah.
But Antonio Soto, as known as Turbo, he's a freshman, and he's an unbelievable athlete, and he's one of those type of kids that we've got a handful of them that make up this team that are going to be really good for the future. But he's immensely talented, and but all the guys, it's a team effort. They all did great, but there are some guys there, when you're playing right fullback, people don't get too excited about you. But like I said, a kid like Enoch, he did a really good job for us.
Exactly. And when you look at Thursday, going back to that game against Davis and Elkins, a lot of cards being given out. The discipline was kind of all over the place at times. And then you go to kind of fast forward to Sunday. The first half, there were some small issues, but more, it seemed like internal. Guys just kind of arguing back and forth, trying to find that rhythm and establish themselves. How do you as a coach manage that? Well,
you've got to, in some ways you've got to be, you nurture these things. Sometimes, they were pretty upset at the end of the game yesterday, they lost, and sometimes there's a little bit of bickering and stuff, and that's not always a bad sign.
Yeah.
That kind of shows they care a lot. So I got to kind of harness that a little bit, especially with the young group. Say, look, and my words after the game was just today, like, listen, in the end, we gave up a goal, but I had no complaints with your effort. You tried to win the game, and as the season goes on, of course, we've got to deal with situations about conceding goals late. But game 2, a tie against Millersville, who were always very strong, will be strong in the PSAC this year. I've got no complaints, and but you're going to have that, and again, but I think in some ways, that type of energy, a little bit of friction amongst players, not always bad. Not always bad.
Exactly. And it's obviously proven to be working well on the pitch. You guys are 1-0-1, and you look at recent history for the program, it's the best start you guys have had to a season since 2022. And although it's a couple of years back, it's still showing the right signs in the positive direction. I remember myself and you were talking a couple of weeks back, and you said you were looking to start off on the right foot for a year. You guys had some struggles last year early and then turned it on late. Right now you're doing the opposite. You're getting it going here early in the season. How do you carry this momentum into the game against Gannon on Friday?
Well, we're gonna have a tough game, but I think sometimes when you get a couple of decent results, and we're unbeaten in the first 2 games, and I'm not going to read too much into that, but it gives you as a coach a little bit of a platform to say, hey, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a decent situation as opposed to being like last year when we may have lost the first 2 or 3 games, and the walls start to close in a little bit in those type of situations. So, but we're going to have a really tough game against Gannon on Friday. That they're always up there. I think they were at pre-season. Ranking was pretty high, I think. But it's homecoming too for them on Friday night. So I mean, you've got to take those factors into account too. So we're going to have a really tough game up there on Friday, but we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and lastly, Coach, when you look at the bigger picture for this season, what are you expecting to see from you guys, and what do you hope that 2025 brings you?
I don't know. It's really hard because I think over half the team out there is underclassmen.
Yeah.
I think we're probably playing four freshmen. Alvaro's a sophomore, Hugo's a sophomore. So 6-7 players are underclassmen there, so it's a really young group. So, and I knew that coming into it. So I don't, you know, I think for me it's just one game at a time. Keep doing what they're doing, try and win every game, you know, and then let's see where it ends up. You know, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I do believe this group, which is really a new 4-year group, is going to be immensely talented. You know, but expectations and everything, and I don't want to put too much on them right now. I just want them to focus on what's in front of them and try and keep building the wins. I think that's the best way to go right now.
Well, Coach, that was great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Reminder, if you want to stay tuned for everything men's soccer, head over to goashlandeagles.com. You can find the schedule, the roster, the stats, everything you might need on Ashland University men's soccer. So we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Pitch right here on the Eagle Network.